Hello, welcome to a ClearPath MCP software technical update. This is for Release 18.0. The feature I'll be talking about is encrypted transfer volumes for SAN DataMover. On the agenda here in this presentation, I'll be giving a brief introduction of SAN DataMover. We'll be talking about the transfer volumes, defining their purpose and utilization. I'll give a brief background of the MCP Disk Encryption, abbreviated MDE, and we'll wrap up by talking about how SAN DataMover utilizes these MDE encrypted transfer volumes, the requirements, implementation, and the benefits. So let's get started here with the SAN DataMover introduction. So SAN DataMover is ClearPath MCP in Windows software that enables high-speed file transfers between the Windows and MCP environments. SAN DataMover uses the Windows software to directly access files on MCP disks, and we achieve this by using a shared disk subsystem known as a transfer volume or a TCP/IP connection. During these file transfers, Windows performs most of the work, including reading from disk, writing to disk, translating files, and transporting the files to a remote system if necessary. So what are transfer volumes? How are they utilized? The term transfer volume applies to a logical unit of a disk subsystem, an MCP family, that is configured for access by both the MCP and Windows systems. When we use transfer volumes, data can be transferred in both directions. That is, from the Windows environment to the MCP, or from the MCP environment to the Windows environment. Transfer volumes improve file transfer time by transporting data at disk I/O rates, which is faster than using a TCP/IP connection. How are these transfer volumes utilized? So there are two pictures here. On the left, we see one from MCP to Windows, and on the right, we see one from Windows to the MCP environment. At this point, I'll encourage you to pause the video as I won't go through each of these little caveats so you can study these for yourself. The main takeaway here is that smack in the middle of the two different colors, you'll see a cylindrical graphic. That is the transfer volume. So what you need to take away is that that transfer volume bridges the gap between the MCP and Windows environments. So now for an MCP disk encryption background, we'll briefly talk about this. MCP disk encryption is a proprietary encryption scheme that utilizes key pairs, and these keys are user-created and stored in the MCP environment. These MCP disks will be in one of four encryption states. We have no encryption, partial encryption, in-use encryption, and of course full encryption. Only VSS2 formatted transfer volumes can be encrypted using MDE. And our MCP firmware utilizes this DLL to encrypt or decrypt the data. So now we'll talk about SAN DataMover utilizing MDE encrypted transfer volumes. We'll start out with the requirements. So SAN DataMover utilizes a version of the same encryption DLL that the MCP firmware uses. This DLL must be installed in the Windows environment where SAN DataMover is running. Two things about this DLL is that it is export controlled and it's installed via the MCP Cryptographic Services MSI. For the MCP environment requirements, you must be running a system that has firmware 40 or later, MCP 571 or later, uses VSS2, and has the runtime key. For the Windows environment requirements, the operating system must be Windows 7 Server 2008 or higher. You have to have 1 gig of free hard drive space for the key store files, and the processor must be an Intel 64-bit processor architecture with the AES, which is Advanced Encryption Standard instruction set. So continuing with the requirements, the only supported VSS types are VSS2. The supported encryption states are no encryption, full encryption, and in-use encryption, so we do not support partial encryption. The physical sector size requirements are you must have a 512-byte physical sector size disk configured as VSS2 or a 4096-byte physical sector size disk configured as VSS2. Mirrored disks are not supported. SAN DataMover does not support mirror disks regardless of their encryption state. So now for the implementation of this feature. This is more of a technical outline. So right now we'll drill down the algorithm to encrypt these transfer volumes. So first we're going to determine the VSS state of the transfer volume. That is found in the disk label. Secondly, we'll determine the encryption state of the transfer volume. This is found in the pad area of the VSS2 formatted disk sectors. And like I mentioned, transfer volumes with partial encryption will be rejected. Next, we'll determine the primary and secondary key names. Those are the keys that you encrypt with. We'll keep track of the information obtained from the first 3 steps for each individual transfer volume. Continuing, now that we know this information, we'll place it in the Windows event logs in SAN DataMover log file. Now we have to configure the MCP firmware encryption DLL within the DMV service. DMV service is the executable that takes care of the transfers between the Windows and MCP environments. So this DLL has to be loaded. We have to obtain the function pointers. 7 is where we actually transfer the file. So when we transfer from MCP to the Windows environment, we'll first read the MCP file, which is already located on the transfer volume. We'll check that the primary encryption key has not changed for that transfer volume. If it has, we'll deny the transfer. We'll then decrypt the data and write this decrypted data to the Windows environment. And now vice versa, going from the Windows environment to the MCP, we will read the Windows file into a buffer, check that the primary encryption key has not changed for that transfer volume. Again, we'll deny it if it has. Encrypt the data and write the encrypted data out to the transfer volume. Finally, here we'll talk about the benefits. So as with any encryption, you have complete data protection. This prevents your data from being exposed. You have security when transferring between MCP and Windows environments. Your data on the wire is safe. You create and own the encryption keys. Nobody can obtain the data unless you supply them with the keys. And finally, it's peace of mind. Now for the conclusion and a little wrap up here. SAN DataMover now supports encrypted transfer volumes as of the ClearPath Software 18.0 release. If you would like to look at detailed documentation covering all aspects of the SAN DataMover product, you can look right there on our support website. You will find a help file, design specifications, and technical designs.
We hope you found this presentation useful and informative. Unisys offers a comprehensive set of ClearPath Forward services to enrich the value of your ClearPath Forward applications, data, and systems. Please contact your Unisys representative for more information. Thank you for your continued use and support of Unisys ClearPath Forward systems. Good day.